They laughed at me, out loud, when Tyler Madson said I was a disgrace to all of us. His voice cut through the hum of early morning at the Cornerstone Café. Steam curled from mugs. The usual 7:15 routine. Tyler, retired Army captain, no real combat, just talk, spoke up about my coat. That rag? You call that pride? He pointed. My old coat, the one I've worn every morning since I moved back to Brooksville. It's threadbare, but it's mine. I didn't answer. He leaned in, eyes bored. You're nothing but a fraud. That's when Colonel Whitaker stepped forward. I felt the shift before I saw him, shoulders back, quiet authority. He was a stranger in town, here for the Veterans Day panel. He wore his dress blues, ribbons polished beneath the lights. He scanned the room, then looked right at me. His sharp gaze fell to the left breast of my coat. He reached inside his jacket slowly, methodical, respectful, and pulled out a folded ribbon. Faded red, white, blue. The ribbon of the Medal of Honor. A hush. The whole cafe froze. Even the clatter of spoons on saucers stopped. Whitaker stepped back, hand over heart, eyes on me. He saluted. Then he said, "Gentlemen, you're standing before a man who earned this." Tyler's mouth opened, then shut. The room exhaled, all at once. I sat up straight. Felt old grief settle differently. I didn't say a word. Because the room already knew. I was born in 1949, in a farmhouse 3 miles outside Brooksville. No running water in winter, no lights after dark. Just us, the fields, and the stars. My father was a farmer, my mother a seamstress, and neither of them ever spoke of glory. They taught me that work was its own kind of honor. I joined the Army in 1967, 2 weeks after I graduated high school. My classmates cheered at the door as I left with my duffel bag and dreams half-formed. I didn't want to be a hero. I just felt the world was bigger than our fields, and I wanted to see it. Boot camp in Fort Knox taught me discipline, how to stand, how to hold a weapon, how to wait. My letters home were short, training. Fine. That was enough. I chose the infantry, less out of bravado and more because I felt responsibility. I wanted to help people, plain and simple. They sent me to Vietnam in '68. To the Mekong Delta, where the water was murky and anxious. We moved through villages, clearing jungles, building outposts. I was a young soldier then, second lieutenant at 20, leading men half my age. They called me Mac. I taught them how to move, how to listen, how to watch. Combat wasn't elegant. It was loud and chaotic. I lost 2 good men during a patrol on a humid afternoon. I can still feel the ground trembling. One moment the sun was shining. The next, mortar fire cracked the world. We lost radio. We lost direction. We lost brothers. After that, they sent me home temporarily. I collected my wounded, patched what I could, then returned. In '70, I led a convoy to rescue an ambushed platoon. We pushed through gunfire, tearing at nerves, pushing ourselves until the pain was something to ignore. We made it out. But I didn't feel pride. I felt the weight of what we'd left behind. I came home in '71. I left pieces of myself in that country, on foxhole floors, in medevac lines, in letters never sent. I got married that October to bride I'd met in town, a nurse named Claire. She never asked me what happened there. She didn't need to. She saw it in my eyes. I saw it in her nights, when she woke me from a dream. I didn't speak for years. I worked odd jobs, paper route, factory shifts, a stint at the feed store. I never talked about the war, not even to Claire. I couldn't. The nightmares were loud. The memories too sharp. But I came here, every morning, to Cornerstone Café. 7:15. Black coffee. Light toast. Quiet. 30 years passed. Claire died in '01. Cancer. I wore this coat at her funeral. I wore it every morning since. It's threadbare because I've worn it. Because it's woven with years of grief and memory. It's where I kept the Medal of Honor ribbon, folded and hidden, for over 50 years. Because I never needed the badge. I needed the silence. I watched from this table as Brooksville changed. The cafe filled up with younger men, veterans of different wars, different wounds. Some wore hats and medals. I wore my coat and my silence. I did my duty. I never spoke of valor. I didn't need to. But I carried it. Always. The mornings at Cornerstone Café had a certain rhythm, the hiss of the coffee machine, chairs scraping, low murmurs about weather, crops, and grandchildren. I never spoke unless spoken to, and even then only sparingly. It was just coffee, just toast, just routine. That's what I wanted. That's what I needed. But routine is fragile. It started subtly. A comment on the coat, "Looks like you're ready for a Dust Bowl, Mac." Said by Tyler Madson one Tuesday. He wore a crisp polo shirt, designer watch, and that look of someone who'd risen on paperwork and wine tastings, never mud and blood. He spoke as though he owned the place, or at least the moment we shared in it. Then came a shift. Tyler began to call roll of veterans at the counter, always claiming the top rank, "Look alive, no brigadier generals in here, just Captain Madson, reporting for duty." His voice rose, bold, echoing through the room. The others laughed. I barely noticed until one day he called me out. "Hey, you. Raggedy coat. You even earn those stripes?" Silence, for once, wasn't enough. I said nothing as Tyler continued, "You think anyone believes you fought? You look like you couldn't lift a potato sack, let alone lead men through the jungle." No one spoke. My hands clenched around the mug. I let my breathing steady before I set it down. I wanted to walk away. I wanted to walk out. But I stayed. Tyler's voice carried on, louder now. "All this so you can pretend to be something you're not. I served too, you know. Captain's bars, thank you very much. Vietnam? Sure. But I did the strategic planning. I did the briefings." A portly man named Mike cleared his throat. "Odd how you judge a man's service by his clothes, Captain." Tyler scoffed. "I judge it by presence." That's when I noticed Dolores, the waitress. Her hand hovered over her coffee pot. Her face was hard to read. Solid, uneasy. Sarah, at the end of the counter, lowered her head. I realized they watched Tyler bully me every morning, under the guise of military pride, but never spoke. Their silence felt like a promise, to protect the space, from nothing more than civility. Weeks rolled on. Tyler's jibes became ritualized. One morning, he planted himself at my butt-of-the-boots table and called across the room, "What color socks we got today, Sergeant? Olive drab or dusty green?" I didn't respond. Sarah gave a slight cough. Mike stared at his toast. Dolores pretended to fill the pitcher, though it was full. Tyler paused, noticing the tension. He smirked. "Guess the general's too tired to earn his keep." I set my napkin down. Slowly folded it. Waited. But no one else spoke. So I folded it again. I wanted to say something. Wanted to tell him he didn't know me or what I carried. Wanted to remind him how many lives I'd left behind in that jungle. But I didn't. That's harder than any firefight. One afternoon, I stayed later than usual. Most had left for lunch or errands. Tyler was there too, talking shop with a few younger veterans. They looked to me like they were picking teams for a game, not remembering men buried under a foreign sun. He raised his cup. To service. But not to men who hide behind threadbare coats and fade into background. His words landed like fists. I stood. Old legs felt like lead. I studied the room. Faces I'd known for years. Some looked down. Others looked away. None said a word. I walked out without finishing my coffee. For the first time in decades, I left the cafe before it drained of its early warmth. Outside, sunlight felt hostile. The town felt hostile. The coat felt heavy on my shoulders and in my chest. I went home, the front steps creaking under my weight. I sat at the kitchen table. The coat lay crumpled beside my plate last night. I smoothed it back out. Unfolded the breast pocket. My hand rested on something cold inside. My chest tightened around its shape. I remembered the metal ribbon pinned there these past 50 years. The ribbon I hadn't shown. Wouldn't show. Not to Tyler, not to strangers, not to anyone but the wall in my bedroom where Claire's photo hung. They didn't know. Not yet. But I did. That night, I dreamed. Not of jungles or gunfire. Of silence. Long stretches of it, broken only by Tyler's voice echoing in empty fields. I woke stiff. Groaned. My body reminded me it was still here. My mind reminded me I wouldn't stay silent forever. I returned to Cornerstone Café the next morning. My coat felt heavier than usual, as if each insult from Tyler had woven itself into the fabric. I walked in, the hiss of the espresso machine greeting me like an old friend. The usual routine, coffee, toast, silence, was fractured the moment I sat. Tyler wasn't there yet, but I could feel the space shift. Sarah stood behind the counter, her hands wrapped around a mug, brow tight. Mike stared at the papers folded beside my toast, Veterans Day panel schedule. Dolores hovered near the kitchen, watching. Eyes wary. Resentful. Something fought in them that morning. Tyler appeared just after 7:30, all easy swagger and crisp shirt. He nodded at me and took his seat across the room, then raised his voice to begin again. Perhaps he thought I'd left. Perhaps he thought I'd remain silent forever. He started soft, so low others might not hear, you know, Mac. But I didn't wait. I rose from my seat. The chair scraped wood. The cafe went still. Fork stopped. Steam paused. Tyler looked up, surprise on his face, before he shifted to anger. I walked across the room. Every footstep carried older weight than modern spring. When I reached the counter, I paused. I looked at Sarah, who met my gaze. Her eyes said, "Please don't, but do what you must." I nodded slightly, permission given, courage found. I slipped my hand into my coat. The metal ribbon was folded flat, pinned over my heart. I felt the cold metal of the pin and the soft tissue of history beneath it. I drew in a slow breath. I felt every breath I'd ever taken in that jungle. "Gentlemen," I said, voice steady though my heart thumped like a drumbeat. "I've carried this a long time." I unpinned the ribbon and held it out, open-palmed. Tyler's lips parted, but no sound emerged. He stared as I placed the ribbon on the counter. Everyone watched. Sarah leaned over and gently placed a napkin beneath it. Mike stared at his hands. Dolores drew in a breath but held it. The metal ribbon, the Medal of Honor's faded colors, lay there like a quiet testament. No one spoke. I stood there a moment longer, letting the ribbon say what I could not. Then I turned and walked back to my seat. I sat. I drank my coffee. Tyler didn't rise. Didn't look away. He just sat, his chest tight, his words gone. Several minutes passed. Then Sarah line clearers, that's real. Her voice soft. Reverent. Mike nodded. Yes. Dolores, wiping her hands, whispered, "Thank you." Tyler slumped. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his own dog tags, handed them across slowly, offer, apology, humility, words he couldn't form. The hush lasted until the door jingled. A visiting veteran stepped in, Colonel Whitaker, I saw. He paused, gazed at the ribbon, then looked at me, saluted once more. The silence broke then, not with noise, but with nods. Heads bowed. Respect earned. Word went around town. No announcement. No pomp. But the morning shift at Cornerstone Café shifted that day. The chair across from mine remained empty, Tyler's seat gone, replaced by a mug of coffee. New respect, unspoken but felt. I stayed. Coffee and toast as always. The ribbon, it didn't decide everything, but it changed something. It stilled the mocking, awakened witnesses, and reminded us all, true service needs no explanation. It needs witnessing. That afternoon, the town square was quieter than the dawn. Flags fluttered at half-mast in the slight breeze. Brooksville's Veterans Day ceremony drew a modest crowd, families, a few kids with folded flags, and veterans lining the back row of folding chairs. I walked slowly, the ribbon pinned carefully inside my coat, hidden. Colonel Whitaker met me at the front pew. He gave a slight nod. "You doing all right?" he whispered. I nodded. As always. The mayor started speaking, talk of sacrifice, courage, service. Tyler Madson stood near the podium with the other veterans, chin raised as if this were his stage now. I stood in the center row, staff on my cane, just silent. When it ended, the colonel stepped up to the microphone again. He scanned the crowd, then paused where I stood. He cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice steady. "There is one man here whose story we must honor today." I felt the ribbon's presence inside my coat like a small heartbeat. He is Staff Sergeant Arthur McConnell, Medal of Honor recipient from Vietnam. He's worn his medal in secret for decades, out of humility and respect. His deeds were never quiet. His recognition has been. A hush settled. Tyler's posture stiffened. The colonel gestured toward me. "Arthur," he said simply. I stood. The cochlear whisper of the crowd filled with static, people shifting, sighing, a child's small cough. I walked forward, cane tapping once, twice. The colonel stepped back. I paused at the podium. I didn't speak. I bowed my head. The ribbon hung inside, unseen, its weight enough. Then the colonel saluted again. I returned it, greeting proper. I put my hand on the ribbon. Head bowed. The crowd rose. Applause followed after a moment, soft at first, then more assured. I stepped back from the stage. Tyler was waiting by the curb. He looked at the ribbon marker above my heart. His eyes wet. "What you did," he said low enough for no one else to hear. "I'm sorry." I nodded. At the edge of the crowd, children laid a wreath at the memorial. Teachers pointed. Parents whispered names. I turned and saw Sarah and Dolores and Mike nodding at me. No words needed. I limped back to my seat. Coffee and toast wait for me in the cafe. But this moment felt warmer. Held. Shared. That afternoon, the ribbon stayed inside. It didn't need to be seen anymore. It had done its work, in stillness, in recognition, and in silent reconciling of truth. The morning after Veterans Day, the Cornerstone Café felt different. I arrived at my usual time, 7:15 a.m., and it greeted me with warmth I hadn't noticed before. The hiss of the coffee machine seemed gentler, the chatter softer, respectful. My coat felt lighter, not because of change in weight, but because the room no longer carried that tension. I took my seat by the window. Dolores nodded at me with a smile that finally reached her eyes. Mike lifted his paper to show a nearly blank page, no mocking headlines, just empty space. And Sarah, she brought my usual coffee and toast, but paused, placing a fresh flower at my table. From the memorial, she whispered. They asked for a few extras today. I nodded, gratefully, and drank my coffee slowly, tasting more than caffeine, connection. Tyler Madson came in a few minutes later, paused at the door when he saw me. He took a deep breath and crossed the room unsteadily. Set his coffee down, black, no sugar, then spoke in a low voice so only I could hear. I've been a fool, he said. I judged what I didn't see and didn't listen. I'm sorry. I pushed the toast toward him. Sit. He sat, picked up the plate, picked up his coffee. Looked at his hands. Then looked at me. I want to help, he said. I saw you yesterday at the memorial, how you tended the flowers. I'd like to do that too. Could I? With you? I didn't answer with words. I nudged the cane. He understood. He would meet me at the memorial after breakfast. Later that morning, the two of us stood at the memorial on Main Street. Fresh chrysanthemums were piled beside the black granite slab. Children's wreaths laid at the base. I carried a small bucket and cleaning cloths. He came with plant clippers and a stained wooden box of roses. We worked in silence. I cleaned the photos of names etched deep. He clipped dead blooms and arranged fresh ones. The sun moved at our backs as we labored, and it felt like the first time in years I had company in this tradition. He finally spoke. Why hide it? The ribbon, I mean. I looked at the metal ribbon pinned inside my coat. Because it wasn't about me, I said. It was about everything that happened over there and everything I left behind. Some stories are too big for the badge. He nodded. I get that now. We knelt together to lay flowers at a name, another Brooksville native I carried with me. I thought of Claire, and of Tyler's father who never came back, and of the silent weight the memorial bears each day. When we finished, he stood and I followed. We faced the stone quietly. He gently touched the ribbon of my coat, on the side of my heart. Thank you, he said. I nodded. Word spread through town. That afternoon, 2 other veterans came to the memorial. One recognized the 173rd Airborne on Tyler's jacket patch and asked if he could help. Another brought bottled water. They cleaned and retended brighter corners. A volunteer with the Veterans Liaison arrived to plant fresh flowers at the base. Back at the cafe the next day, the morning routine had new participants. Casual customers came in not just to chat, but to ask after my coat, ask after my work at the memorial, ask about the ribbon. I answered in few words. Listened more than I spoke. Tyler returned as a regular. Not sitting across from me, but beside me. We talked sometimes. Mostly about weather, about one of the newer veterans who joined the cleanup crew. He told me about his own grandfather, a World War II vet who never spoke of D-Day. He shared stories I hadn't heard before, and I realized every man here carried his own silence. But together, we formed quiet solace. By week's end, the cafe had a new habit. Every Thursday, a floral display, and a small laminated note reading, in memory and honor of all who served, Arthur McConnell. The town didn't rush it. They quietly reverenced it. I kept that note for myself, not for recognition, but to remind me that sometimes what you hide doesn't stay hidden. It finds a way into the light. True courage doesn't demand applause, it endures in silence. Sometimes the greatest truths lie hidden beneath a humble coat or an unspoken sacrifice. Arthur's quiet service and hidden medal of honor turned scorn into reverence, showing us that heroism lives not in what we display, but in what we carry unseen.